5 years ago, a quiet 16-year-old girl vanished from a small Vermont town without a note, a goodbye, or a trace. The police called it a runaway. Her father never believed it. Now, a forgotten classroom, a hidden tin box, and a trembling confession will unravel everything the town thought it knew and force them to face what they chose not to see. Autumn in Montville is always marked by a gentle, almost haunting beauty. Maple leaves paint the eaves red, stretching across the winding slopes as if autumn wants to hold onto every passing footstep. The air is crisp and still. Even the church bells ringing at noon sound fainter than in previous years. This year marks the 5th year Lily Gardner hasn't returned. Daniel Gardner is sitting in the old classroom at Montville High, a chisel in his hand, slowly shaping the wood. The old student desk creaks as he presses the head of the chisel hard into a leg eaten away by termites. The sound of wood splintering, dry and harsh, echoes through the empty space. He's been a carpenter for 30 years, since he was young, when he first got married, and even as a widower. But in recent years, he's become a carpenter working to forget the pain, not to earn a living. The hands that once skillfully built the first bed for his little daughter now only repeat lifeless movements like a machine. In this room, the scent of sawdust and time mingle, the smell of memories. Sometimes he thinks he can smell Lily's hair when she pressed her face against his shoulder on her first day of kindergarten. But then he blinks, returning to the present, where only he remains, the old desk and the vast emptiness in his chest. That silence. He once said to himself, "It's like she's standing behind me about to say something, and then doesn't." He hasn't left Montville, never has. He still lives in the small wooden house at the edge of the pine forest, where his wife died of cancer when Lily was just 8. Daniel had promised to raise their daughter well, to send her to university, and to keep all the beautiful memories of her mother alive in every corner of the house. The year Lily disappeared, Daniel froze. No tears, no anger. Just sitting quietly in his daughter's room until morning. On the bedside table was an open diary, an unfinished poem, and a red jacket hanging neatly. The police said she ran away. He doesn't believe it. Lily would never go anywhere without saying a word. She was the type of person who wrote notes to remember. Even a buy milk note stuck on the refrigerator. Not a single letter, no message, didn't take any money. Who runs away like that? He's asked countless times. As evening falls, Daniel quietly sets the table. A bowl of hot soup, a slice of toast. As a habit, he takes out 2 bowls, puts them down, looks at them for a moment, then puts one away. No one mentions it. No one laughs. It's just a habit, like a silent prayer he's kept for 5 years. On the kitchen wall is an old photograph. Lily wearing a white wool hat, cheeks flushed pink in her first snowy winter. Next to it is a pendulum clock that still runs steadily, as if nothing has ever gone wrong in this world. Daniel eats slowly, chewing each spoonful mechanically. The meal ends with the sound of the spoon hitting the bottom of the bowl, a curt but honest sound. It's the only sound during dinner. The next morning, he leaves the house earlier than usual. The wind blows through the row of maple trees along the road, carrying the damp smell of earth and decaying leaves. Daniel stops at a bend in the road where Lily used to wait for the school bus every morning. He still remembers the image of the last day clearly. She was wearing a red jacket, holding a new poetry book, a bright smile on her face. "Remember to open it and read it, Dad. I wrote it for you." "Yes, I'll read it tonight," he said, not knowing it was the last sentence. That night, Lily didn't come home. His whole world collapsed in silence. Daniel doesn't talk much about the pain. No one really understands. They ask, they offer comfort, but then their lives go on. Only he remains stuck in an autumn day 5 years ago, a season that never passes. He tried going to a therapist, but after 2 sessions, he gave up. They didn't have a daughter named Lily. They didn't know what it felt like to walk into his daughter's room and everything was still exactly as it was on her last day. but there was no answer. He used to think, if he had known she was going to leave, he would have hugged her a little longer, asked her another question, smiled one more time. But life didn't give him that chance. That afternoon, the phone rang. The voice of the Montville High Principal rang out, polite but hesitant. "Daniel, the school is renovating the old classroom area. We need someone to dismantle the wooden cabinets, especially the English classroom, the one Mr. Cullen taught in a few years ago." He didn't answer immediately. The name Cullen made his heart clench. Not because of suspicion, but because Lily had mentioned him so often. "Mr. Cullen said my poems have soul. He lent me Wuthering Heights. He said I should join the creative writing club." Those words still echoed in his head, his daughter's voice, her radiant eyes. Daniel sat silently for a moment, then said, "I can do it. When do you want me to start?" Sometimes the pain is no longer sharp enough to cut the heart. It just smolders, like the ashes of an old fire, no longer burning but still capable of burning someone if touched. Daniel doesn't cry anymore. He doesn't scream, doesn't break anything. But no one can understand how big the emptiness in his heart is. For 5 years, he's lived like a person walking in fog, just hoping that one day Lily will return, or someone will tell him where his daughter went, just to know, so he can say the final sentence, "You're back." Montville High on an early morning is shrouded in a gray, dim light, the kind of light often seen on early autumn days, when the sun seems to still be dozing after a long night. Daniel walks through the creaking iron door of Building B, the old classroom area that is about to be dismantled and renovated into a common room. The hallway is dusty, each window pane is blurred, the paint is peeling, like a place forgotten by time. He knows the English classroom is at the end of the row, room 2B, once the kingdom of Mr. Cullen, whom Lily always called with a mixture of admiration and excitement. Outside the door, the teacher's nameplate has long been removed, leaving only a few rusty nail holes that leave faint traces of its former presence. When Daniel turns the doorknob, the door opens with a dry creak. The morning light filters through the window, illuminating the dusty classroom. The old student desks and chairs are still there, some leaning, some with faint carvings of names. He looks up at the blackboard. There are still traces of chalk that haven't been completely erased, like an unfinished quote. "When one door closes." Daniel doesn't read on. He can't. He walks to the row of wooden cabinets at the back of the classroom, the kind of cabinets built into the wall, designed to store school supplies, test papers, teacher materials. Daniel quietly opens his toolbox, starting to remove the hinges. Each nail pulled out is like a thorn stabbing back into memory. He was the one who built the wooden cabinets for this classroom nearly 20 years ago, when Mr. Cullen was first assigned to the school. His hands still remember how to chisel the wood, how to apply each thin layer of varnish to preserve the golden oak color. Now, the wood has darkened, mottled with mold, and in some places rotted from water damage to the walls. When he pries off the last piece of wood in the innermost corner, a small gap appears. Daniel frowns, touches it, and suddenly notices something unusual, an empty space, and in it, a small, strange object. He gently reaches in, pulling out a dented tin box, red with rust around the edges. The box is so old that it seems like it will break if you just shake it. No brand name, no signature. Just a faded ribbon, loosely tied. Daniel looks at the box for a long time. His hands tremble, partly from the cold, partly from the strange feeling rising in his chest. A kind of father's intuition, as if inside the box is something he's never been ready to face. When the lid pops open, inside is a jumble of papers, a few small photos, black and white, clear, showing Lily sitting and writing something by the classroom window. Not family photos, not taken by him. Another one, Lily turning away, holding a notebook, her face slightly sad, hair falling over her cheek. Daniel takes a deep breath. His heart tightens. Underneath the photos are torn pages with handwritten lines in blue ink that has faded slightly over time. A piece of paper scribbled hastily in capital letters and lowercase. Don't trust anyone. Don't say anything. They'll think I'm making it up. And finally, an unsent letter, written in handwriting he couldn't possibly mistake. Lily's handwriting. Slightly slanted, leaning to the left. The kind of handwriting his daughter used when she wrote in her diary since she was 12 years old. Mr. Cullen said if I tell, people won't believe me. I feel like a shadow. I don't know if I'm doing something wrong, but I'm tired. I just want someone to know. Daniel drops the paper, slumping down on the classroom floor. His back is against the wall, eyes staring straight up at the old ceiling, which has turned the color of smoky dust. He doesn't cry, but his eyes can't see anything clearly anymore. Lily ... he whispers, as if she's standing somewhere in this room, still quietly waiting to be seen. Suddenly, the English classroom is no longer a classroom. It becomes a realm of memories, where a little girl once cherished the dream of becoming a writer, wrote her first poems, placed her trust in an adult she admired, and perhaps was so hurt that she wanted to disappear from this world. All of that is in this room. It's in the scratches on the edge of the desk, the lines of chalk that haven't been erased, and in that silent tin box. Daniel sits there for a long time, still holding the letter, the old question echoing in his head that he's never dared to ask anyone. Is there something you wanted to say to me, but never had the chance? When Daniel leaves the classroom, the sunlight is already shining diagonally into the hallway, casting his shadow long like an old shadow following behind. He clutches the tin box tightly. For the first time in 5 years, he doesn't feel like he's wandering in pain, but rather entering it, truly, with all the readiness of a father. The English classroom is still intact, but from today, it's no longer a classroom. It's living proof of something that this whole town has chosen to forget. The next morning, Daniel stands in front of the Montville police station, clutching the old tin box wrapped in cloth. It just rained lightly. The stains still linger on the stone steps, making the ground slippery. The smell of wet grass and rusty dirt clings to the air. It's been a long time since he's been back here. The building is the same. The paint is faded, the nameplate is tarnished, and the air is cold, like a place that holds too many unfinished stories. Daniel walks in, each step slow but resolute. The receptionist looks at him for a few seconds, then nods. Mr. Gardner, Detective Reyes will see you now. Monica Reyes's office is on the second floor. She is a newly transferred officer, passionate about her work and full of responsibility. The cold, white neon light shines on the thick files. She sits there, back straight, hair neatly tied, eyes with dark circles of someone who often stays up late for work. But in that look still retains alertness and, when she sees Daniel walk in, a hint of embarrassment that she can't hide. Mr. Gardner. She stands up, extends her hand. Daniel just nods slightly, sitting down opposite her. He puts the box on the table like something that weighs twice his body weight. Monica opens the box. She carefully picks up each photo, examines each letter, saying nothing. When she picks up the last letter, the line, "Mr. Cullen said if I tell, people won't believe me," her hand stops. The space suddenly thickens. Daniel is still sitting quietly, but his eyes don't leave her face. She wanted to speak. She hoped someone would believe her. His voice is deep and hoarse. But no one listened. Monica doesn't look up. She reads each line again, slowly. Then she carefully stacks the pages, squeezing her fingers lightly. The silence lasts so long that Daniel can almost hear the ticking of the clock outside the hallway. At that time, she says softly, as if confessing, Lily's case was classified as a runaway. I didn't look closely enough, didn't ask enough questions. He doesn't answer, but in his eyes, it's not blame. but disappointment that has cooled to the point of not wanting to blame anymore. Monica stands up, pulls an old file from the drawer, with Lily Gardner's name on the label. The first page is the report of the day Lily disappeared. A short sentence. No signs of violence. Suspected runaway. She flips through each page, each line of text like a stab straight into her chest. Perfunctory questions, hasty conclusions, and no one ever asked about Cullen. The exemplary teacher, the one that everyone trusted. Monica closes her eyes for a short moment. When she opens them, there's a change in her eyes. "I will reopen the case," she says. Daniel looks up, looking straight at her. He doesn't ask, "Really?" or "Why are you doing it now?" He just nods, like someone who has walked too long in the fog, now doesn't need light, just needs someone to walk with him. A few hours later, Monica stands in her superior's office, Captain Paul Westcott, who signed the closure of Lily's file that year. She presents everything: the evidence, the words in the letter, the photos of unknown origin. Westcott's face wrinkles as soon as he hears the name Cullen. "Monica," he sighs, "this case has been closed for 5 years. No body, no crime scene, no witnesses. What do you want to reopen it for?" She looks up, her eyes steady. No body doesn't mean no crime. Sometimes, the biggest evidence is what we don't see. And if you don't find anything, are you willing to take responsibility? I used to not take responsibility. Now I will. The whole room is silent. Westcott looks at her for a few more seconds, then nods, not agreeing but not preventing her either. That night, Monica sits alone in her small apartment on the 3rd floor. She reopens her computer, searches for old emails, notes still saved in the system. But what holds her is not the file, but an old photo of Lily, taken at the literary ceremony in 10th grade. Lily stands in the middle of the schoolyard, eyes bright, hair tied to the side, holding a poetry collection. Behind her is Mr. Cullen, his face smiling, his hand placed casually on the girl's shoulder. A normal photo. But when she looks long enough, she sees Lily's eyes not looking at the teacher. She looks at the camera, straight, deep, and in those eyes, there's something not entirely joy. Monica turns off the computer. She pulls a small notebook from the drawer. Inside is the name of each case she has pursued. She adds a line, "Lily Gardner needs answers." And under that line, she adds 3 simple words, but heavy as a boulder. "I was wrong." Daniel lies in bed, unable to sleep. He doesn't know what will happen, nor is he sure where the truth will lead him. But for the first time in many years, he feels not alone. His daughter used to call, "Dad, can you hear me?" Now he is heard. The Willow Leaf Tea Shop is right opposite the back gate of Montville High. A small shop, red brick walls, gray tile roof, the smell of baked goods and dried tea leaves always wafting like the smell of old years. This used to be a gathering place for students after school. Some students even wrote their first poem at the corner table near the window, where the afternoon sun cast a slant on the dark wooden table. Monica Reyes chooses to sit there, holding a cup of ginger tea, looking out at the yard full of fallen maple leaves. She doesn't come here to reminisce, but to meet someone, Jenny Moore, who was recorded in the old file as Lily Gardner's best friend. When the door of the shop opens, Monica immediately recognizes Jenny, a woman in her 30s, tall and thin, her face with a trace of what was once very innocent, now carrying the look of an adult. She is with a child of about 3 years old, gives it to the shop staff to look after, and walks to Monica's table. "Sorry I'm late," Jenny says, smiling slightly, but her eyes not hiding worry. "It's okay. Please sit down." They are silent for a few seconds, the kind of silence of 2 women who both know they are about to talk about something not easy to swallow. Monica pulls a photo from her bag. Lily and Jenny at their 16th birthday party, both wearing headbands with the words "Besties Forever," faces smiling brightly. Jenny looks at the photo for a long time, her lips pressed together slightly. "That was before everything changed," Do you remember what happened? The time before Lily disappeared? Jenny nods slowly, her eyes lowered. There was one. I remember it was after English class. Lily ran out of the classroom, her eyes red. I asked, but she just shook her head. After that, I kept pressing, she said. Mr. Cullen said I was special, but I'm scared. Monica frowns. Did you tell anyone? Jenny shakes her head. I thought she misunderstood. Who would think a teacher like that? I didn't have the courage to believe it. And Lily, she never mentioned it again. Those words are like a knife cutting through the skin of time. Monica doesn't blame Jenny. She clearly understands that kind of silence. The silence of being afraid of being wrong, afraid of being considered to be imagining things, afraid of making a big deal. But now, sitting here, Jenny's eyes shine with unspoken self-reproach, and she knows the young mother has carried this burden for many years. She wasn't the type to run away, Jenny continues. She dreamed of being a writer. She told me every story she wrote. How could a person like that leave without saying a word? Leaving the tea shop, Monica meets Ben Carter, a former student who used to sit at the same desk as Lily. Ben is now a software engineer living in the next town, but still often visits his grandparents in Montville. They meet in the park by the lake, where the old willow tree still droops its light green branches like silver hair. Ben is a man of few words, but when Monica mentions Lily, he hesitates and then nods. Lily was a good person, gentle, somewhat dreamy, but also someone who wasn't easy to befriend, except with Jenny. Did you see anything strange before she disappeared? Ben is silent for a moment, looking at the rippling lake. Once I went back to class after school because I forgot my wallet. I saw Lily still sitting in class with Mr. Cullen. The door was just slightly closed. The teacher was standing very close. I didn't hear clearly, but Lily wasn't looking up, just bowing her head. When I walked in, they both jumped. Have you told this story to anyone? I thought. It must have been a normal homework discussion. Once again, that normal sounds like a chorus of mistakes. Monica records the details, but what catches her attention more is Ben's eyes, like Jenny, carrying the regret of someone who once stood near a door ajar, but turned away. As night falls, Monica returns to the office. She asks the technical department to recover data from the old email system. It takes hours, but finally she finds a series of emails sent from a student account, lily.g@student.montville.edu, to Cullen's personal address. The anomaly is, all these emails do not exist on the school server. They have been deleted from the main system, only saved in the backup, a level that only someone with deep technical knowledge can handle. She opens one of the last emails. The subject line is empty. The content is just a sentence. If I disappear, you'll be more at peace, right? Monica sits quietly, her heart beating slowly. No exclamation mark, no angry expression. Just a question, as icy as a knife cutting through flesh. A 16-year-old girl who used to write poetry, used to believe in literature and beauty, has been pushed to the point of writing that sentence. Before leaving the office, Monica stops in front of the personal noteboard. She adds a line to the case list. Those who knew but didn't believe. Those who saw but didn't speak. Then, very softly, she adds a word. I. Robert Cullen's house is located at the end of a quiet road shaded by maple trees, about a 10-minute drive from the center of Montville. The roof is gray tile, the wide porch has 2 rocking chairs, and a pot of lavender is placed in front of the steps. Everything is neat, quiet, as if this place belongs to someone who has stepped out of the noisy world and chosen to stay with books and afternoon tea. Monica stops the car in front of the gate. It's lightly foggy. The branches sway slightly in the wind, brushing against each other, making unintelligible whispers. She stands there for a moment, taking a deep breath. The cold creeps through her jacket, making her spine cold, not because of the weather, but because of the person she is about to meet. She knocks on the door, A moment later, the door opens. Robert Cullen appears. Still that face, his beard trimmed carefully, thin-rimmed glasses and light brown eyes. There's something very calm in his eyes, like someone who has learned not to let emotions rise to the surface. "Who are you, and what brings you here?" he says, his voice deep and gentle. "I'm Detective Monica Reyes. I've come to see you about a few things I want to ask." "Come in." As it happens, I've already made tea. Monica walks in, carefully as if walking into a museum of antiques. The house inside is exactly what she imagined. Bookshelves reaching the ceiling, portraits of classical writers, a large writing table by the window, ink pens and blotting paper neatly arranged. Everything is perfect. Too perfect to not be suspicious. She sits down on the chair opposite him. Tea is poured into a white porcelain cup with pale green floral patterns. Cullen sits down opposite, picks up the teacup, and takes a sip. Monica nods. "Do you still remember Lily?" Of course, a bright student, loved literature, somewhat sensitive, and, if I may be honest, a little too imaginative. She holds his gaze, not letting it waver. "I didn't come here to hear academic evaluations." "What do you need then?" She takes an envelope from her bag. Inside are copies of the photos, handwritten letters, and an email. She doesn't say anything, just puts them on the tea table, pushing them lightly towards him. Cullen picks them up and looks at them, one sheet at a time. His face is still calm, but Monica, with years of investigative experience, sees a very small change. His hand holding the photo tightens, the knuckles protrude slightly. When he gets to the letter, Lily wrote, "I'm tired. I just want someone to know, even if it's just this wall." Зрение. Он кладет букву вниз, глядя прямо на Моника. "Where did you get these things?" You should ask, why were they hidden in your classroom for 5 years? Cullen leans back in his chair. His eyes don't leave her. Lily was a girl with too strong an imagination. I think she confused feelings, and then ran away because she thought she was betrayed. Did you ever keep her after school? I kept many students back for discussions. It's my responsibility. Only Lily wrote letters like this, and only in your classroom did we find evidence. Monica responds, her voice even and cold. No other student wrote, "If I disappear, you'll be more at peace, right?" Cullen is silent. In a few short seconds, Monica realizes something that doesn't need a confession. The silence is no longer denial, but evasion. She is about to speak when the wind chimes outside the porch tinkle softly, and Daniel Gardner appears behind the glass door. He doesn't come in, just stands there, his hands hanging loosely, his eyes not leaving Cullen. That look, not of a father driven mad by the loss of his child, but of someone who once believed, once respected, and now only has a deep emptiness in his belief. Cullen sees him too. His face doesn't change color, but his shoulders stiffen slightly. Monica feels the tension spreading like an oil slick. Daniel turns away. Without a word, Cullen turns back, putting down the teacup. "I ask you to leave my house if you don't have a search warrant. I've said all I know." Monica stands up, picking up the file. She walks to the door, her hand touching the doorknob, then stopping. "You know, Mr. Cullen." Her voice is light but rings clearly in the quiet room. The truth never disappears. It's just waiting for someone brave enough to open it. The door closes behind her. The wind sweeps across the porch, making the dry leaves rustle. In the house still lingers the warm scent of tea, but Monica knows, hidden under that scent, is the musty smell of secrets incubated for 5 years. She and Daniel pass each other, just looking at each other, without saying a word. They don't need to speak, because they already know what they have to do next, and can imagine the truth that has been hidden for many years. On the way back, Monica doesn't turn on the radio. She lets the car fill with silence, not to rest, but to face. She thinks of Cullen's eyes. It's not the eyes of an innocent man. It's the eyes of someone who has been preparing a defense for many years, but never thought he would have to say it. and she knows. Not because he lied, but precisely because he can't honestly look back at the eyes of a father like Daniel. She tells herself, this time she will go to the end. The Montville sky is gray like the inside of a coffin lid. Low clouds drift silently overhead, so slowly that they make people feel suffocated. The autumn wind no longer blows gently. It's cold and sharp, like a reminder. Something is about to be turned over, from the ground and from the hearts of people who once chose silence. Detective Monica Reyes walks out of the police station with a stack of papers in her hand, the search warrant and the excavation of the site. Cullen confessed the night before, in the lonely interrogation room, where there were no reporters, no audience, and no room for acting. I didn't mean to, he said, his voice dry, but not trembling. I was afraid. I told her not to tell, but when she said she was going to tell her father, I couldn't control myself. Monica doesn't answer, just silent, flipping through each page of the file, each diary entry, each photo. When Cullen bows his head, his small shoulders suddenly sink like a dent, not because of regret, but because he knows that fame can't save someone who has dug a hole to bury himself. Today, the forensics team, the excavation team, and the police are concentrated on the soccer field behind Montville High, a place that no students have frequented for a long time. Across the abandoned pitch, a rusty iron fence surrounds a cluster of overgrown grass. After that is a technical hatch, covered by nets and pieces of rotten wood. Cullen is not present, but Monica holds a diagram drawn by himself, a rough but clear sketch, an X marking the place where the hatch was blocked with rough cement. Daniel Gardner also comes, but he doesn't enter the excavation area. He stands at a safe distance, across the dirt road, his arms crossed, his eyes fixed on every movement. No one dares to call his name. No one speaks, because that silence is stronger than any question. The sound of the cutting machine rings out, then the sound of the hoe hitting the concrete. The sound is rough, harsh, echoing far away in the empty yard. Monica wears gloves, standing next to the forensics team when the first layer of cement is broken, revealing a damp smell mixed with a faint smell of rot, a smell that anyone who has been in the profession long enough will never mistake. When the hatch is opened, lights shine inside, a small, cold, and silent space. There, under an old, tattered tarpaulin, is a layer of uneven, rough soil, and under that layer of soil, they find human bones, a skeleton that is no longer intact but still retains the shape of a body. Arms folded, one leg slightly bent, and the skull slightly dented, as if it had been impacted. Next to the body, there is another object, a small notebook with a jade green fabric cover. Monica kneels down, carefully picking it up, wrapping it in an evidence preservation bag. She doesn't open it immediately, but she knows in it is not an accusation, but the last whisper of a 16-year-old girl who loved poetry and wanted to be heard. When the diary is brought back to the forensics lab, Monica is the one who opens the last page. Although the handwriting has faded, the ink blurred by the humidity, the last line can still be read. I believed you. I thought I was special. Now I just want to go home. Monica doesn't cry, but she has to sit down. Not because of emotion, but because she feels like a knife has touched the deepest part of responsibility. For the first time in 5 years, Lily speaks. Not with living words, but with words written when there was nothing else to cling to. Daniel is still standing outside the soccer field when the forensics team closes the hatch. Someone tells him, gently, as if apologizing, that they have confirmed that it is Lily. He doesn't nod, nor does he say anything. He just closes his eyes. It's been a long time since he's done that, closing his eyes during the day, not to sleep, but to listen. Listen to the wind, the sound of the shovel, the chirping of insects, and even some whisper that only he can hear. She was here, all this time. It's just that no one looked in the right place. No one touches him. No one hugs him. Daniel doesn't need that. He needs time for the pain to end, not with tears, but with the truth. A father doesn't need judgment, doesn't need an apology, just needs to know. To know that Lily didn't run away. To know that Lily knocked on the door. And to know that now, Lily is no longer in the dark. On the evening news, the report covers the excavation. But no one has the diary. No one broadcasts the last line. Only Monica, who keeps a copy, stands silently in the office, reading each word again, as if reading a will not written by law, but by the heart of a girl who has never been truly listened to. Daniel Gardner's small wooden house is nestled by the edge of the forest, once a warm home for 3 people. Now only he remains, living with the creaking of the wooden floor and the dim sunlight filtering through the window curtains. Since his wife died, he has kept everything as it was. The dining table with 3 chairs, the cup Lily liked to use in the morning, the child's scribbled drawing pasted on the refrigerator. For 5 years, nothing has changed, except that the person he wanted to keep the most is no longer there. Today, Daniel is sitting at his old desk, once used to make simple wooden furniture. Now placed on it is Lily's last diary. The cover of the book is jade green, worn at the edges, the smell of old ink mixed with the smell of mold. Monica gave it to him this morning, a copy reprinted from the original, the paper torn and soaked in moisture that could not be kept intact. "I think you should read it," she just said, without adding another word. Daniel places his rough hand on the cover of the book. For the first time in all those years, he not only remembers Lily, he hears his daughter's voice again, through writing, through whispering from the pages. He opens the first page. September 14th, I like autumn, but lately I find it sad, like someone is whispering that no one can hear clearly. Me too, a simple line. But Daniel reads it over and over like reading scripture. He turns the next page, 1 page at a time, not in a hurry. Each line is a cut, not sharp, but deep to the marrow. Mr. Cullen said I have the soul of an artist. I was happy at first, but then, I don't understand why, when he stands close, I want to disappear. My friends don't listen to me. They laugh when I say something is wrong. I don't want to write anymore. I'm afraid my words will be misread by someone. Daniel squeezes the book lightly. The lines no longer have clear ink, but the meaning is sharp as a knife. He remembers the nights the girl closed her room door, saying, "I'm tired, Dad. I'll read the poems later." He remembers the mornings Lily went to school early, ate quickly, and didn't want to talk. He thought it was adolescence. It was the artist's personality. It was that the girl needed her own space. He didn't know that that space was where Lily was trying to struggle, trying to scream, and only receiving cruel silence in return. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I just don't want to be touched. But if I say it, I'm afraid he'll hate me. I'm afraid people will think I'm lying. I'm afraid of losing the class I love. Daniel stops. His hands tremble. Not because of anger, but because his heart hurts so much that he can't control his fingers. No more tears, only heavy, broken breathing like the wind hitting glass. He puts his head down on the table. In his head appears the image of Lily at 10 years old, sitting blowing soap bubbles on the porch, hair with a few streaks of foam, laughing when he draws animals on the wooden table. "Dad, I'll write a story about this table. The table can talk, Dad. That girl is still here." But now she only talks through pages of wet ink. Daniel raises his head. For the first time in 5 years, he takes out paper to write, a blank sheet of paper. He doesn't know what he's writing until the words appear on it, from fingers that move on their own as if his heart is speaking. "Lily, I've read it. Every word, every line. You spoke, but I didn't listen. I didn't see you drowning, because I believed that I was good enough to keep you safe. I didn't see, didn't ask, didn't dare to step into your fear. You were home. It's just that I wasn't brave enough to enter the right room. I'm sorry." He puts down the pen, looking back at his handwriting. Not straight, with trembling in places, with ink smudged in places because his hand accidentally touched it when it wasn't dry. For the first time in many years, Daniel feels like he's writing something truly honest and not writing to convince, to justify, or to protect his own feelings. He leaves the table, walking into Lily's old bedroom, the room he used to lock, then unlock, then lock again, as if negotiating with the pain. On the wall are still the pictures Lily drew herself, a brown-haired girl sitting in a field of white daisies, a small house by a stream, a short rainbow connecting two hills, all like childhood illusions that no one dares to touch to fix. Daniel sits down on his daughter's bed, his hand groping for the pillow that has faded in color. Under the pillow, he finds an old piece of paper. Lily's handwriting, written a long time ago, scribbled, "Dad, if I'm sad, will you hug me?" He puts the paper to his lips, touching it lightly. "I will, daughter. It's just that I couldn't see how sad you were." He sits in that room for a long time, not saying anything more, not needing to do anything. The room seems to shrink, neater, warmer, like a place waiting. And for the first time, Daniel no longer sees it as the relic of a tragedy, but as the trace of a soul who lived, loved, hurt, and wrote. Daniel stands up, walking out to the porch. The wind blows lightly, carrying the smell of wild daisies, Lily's favorite flower. Evening is falling. The pale sun sprinkles down on the grass. He looks towards the pine forest, where the small path leads to the soccer field, now the scene of the crime. No one is there anymore. Only he and a quiet afternoon, no longer cold because of silence, but soothed because the truth has been spoken. Lily, you have been heard. And I have finally heard your voice again. The Montville sky this morning is the milky white of thin mist. The cold wind sweeps across the Daisy Hill behind the high school, a place students still call the Hill of Ideas. In the old days, when they were students, Jenny and Lily used to skip gym class to sit here, writing poems on the back of old test papers, giggling when the proctor couldn't find them. Now, Jenny returns, not to write poetry, but to say the apology she has never been brave enough to utter. In her hand is a bouquet of white daisies and an old red velvet-covered notebook, the poetry notebook of two girlfriends who thought they would always walk together until the end of high school. Jenny sits down on the grass. The scattered daisies touch her ankles, cool like memories. She opens the notebook, flipping through the yellowed pages, naive poems, teenage emotions, and in between is an unfinished poem. The poem is titled Colorless Autumn, written in two types of handwriting, one slanted, one straight. Jenny reads the beginning. "I like the color of fading leaves because they are about to fall. I'm not afraid of the cold season. If someone goes with me." She remembers that day Lily wrote this after an afternoon sitting for a long time without speaking. Jenny once asked, "Why aren't you afraid of the cold season?" Lily just smiled faintly. Because in the cold season, everyone needs someone. At that time, she didn't understand. Now she understands. But it's too late. Jenny takes a tissue from her pocket, wiping her eyes lightly. She doesn't intend to cry, at least not in front of someone who can't respond. But when memories flood back, her eyes just get wet without warning. "Lily used to be very trusting," she says softly, as if speaking to herself. "She believed everyone had a good side. Even when she was scared, she still looked for the beauty in everything. She said, 'If you're scared, but can still see the light, then you're still alive.' I'm the opposite. I'm cautious, realistic, and a little cold. I think keeping silent is a good way to keep myself safe, but I didn't understand that. Some people just need a kind look to not collapse. I didn't give that look." She picks up the notebook again, flipping to the last page with Lily's writing. An unfinished poem. It's unclear whether it's the beginning or the end. "If I am the river, and everyone passes by without looking down, will I still be able to flow to the sea?" Jenny looks at that line for a long time. Each word is like a thorn. She realizes that Lily didn't just need a friend. She needed a witness. Someone who dared to believe, dared to ask, dared to stand still and not turn away. But Jenny turned away, not out of malice, but out of fear of seeing what was unfamiliar. "I'm sorry I wasn't brave enough to see her correctly," she says quietly. Not as a weak person who needed to be protected, but as someone who needed someone to believe that her pain was real. She takes out a piece of paper from her pocket, a new poem written last night after reading the entire diary that has been published. This time, it's not a poem for two people, but a poem by a person who is still alive, written for the person who couldn't wait any longer. "If you ever called, now I hear you. If you ever cried, now I cry instead. If you ever saw everything gray, now I see my heart has no color left." Jenny holds the poem in her hand for a long time. She's not sure if anyone will read it or print it or even care. But it's okay, because this time, she doesn't write to share. She writes to atone. A week later, the poem is printed on the front page of the Montville school newspaper, not as a piece of literature, but as a testimony. Right under the title, "Autumn Memories," is the opening sentence that makes many senior students silent. "Lily used to live here. No need for explanation, no need for details. Just one sentence, and enough for everyone to understand. The little girl with the sad poems once walked through this hallway, once sat in the back of the English classroom, once let the light shine through the window onto the notebook, and once wanted to be listened to." Jenny stands outside the newly renovated common room, where Cullen's old classroom used to be, and looks through the glass door. Inside is now a self-study library, with warm yellow lights, open bookshelves, and a small corner displaying student notebooks for free writing. In the middle of that corner, there is a notebook covered again, named Lily, The Untold Stories. Jenny doesn't sign her name in the poem, but everyone knows it's hers. A few younger students stop by the reading corner, silently for a few minutes, then walk out, their eyes somehow changed. Late in the afternoon, Jenny brings the bouquet of white daisies to the small cemetery on the hill to the west. Lily's grave is next to an old maple tree. The wind blows, the leaves rustle like the sound of paper. She doesn't bring the poem, nor does she bring tears. Only the flowers. She kneels down, sticking each daisy into the ceramic vase by the grave, adjusting the lace scarf placed at the foot of the tombstone. On the tombstone is engraved, "Lily Gardner, lover of words," and once waited to be listened to. Jenny doesn't say anything. No praying, no asking for forgiveness. She knows that this pain doesn't need to be erased, but needs to be kept as a scar to remind about a friendship that once lived, then died because of silence. When the wind rises, Jenny stands up, taking a step back. The daisies tremble in the wind. A few petals fly with it, swirling in the air and then dissolving into the pale sunlight. "If you're still reading poetry somewhere," Jenny says softly, "I hope the wind will bring these words to you. Late, but sincere." She turns away, without looking back, and the wind blows, this time no longer cold. News travels faster than the autumn wind. Within a week, the story of Lily Gardner filled the front pages of newspapers. No longer just an old disappearance case folded up in a small town file, but the top headline on social and educational websites. "Famous teacher kills student, victim ignored for 5 years." That line is like a knife tearing apart the Montville-style peaceful mask that everyone used to believe was real. No one dared to imagine that between the school with its shady rows of maple trees, between the wooden houses with warm yellow lights, between the people who greeted each other every morning, there was a death buried deep by the very silence of the community. At the small coffee shop near the bus stop, where teachers and parents often gather on weekend mornings, conversations no longer talk about prices, jobs, or upcoming exams. But rather, "That girl used to study in the same class as my daughter. And yet, I never asked her a question. I remember Lily. She often carried a poetry book. Once she even read a passage to the class. I thought she was just overly sensitive. And yet we let everything pass, as if a child disappearing is something that can be explained so simply. Monica hears those words every day when she walks through the streets, stops at the gas station, or goes to get records from the school. She doesn't interfere, doesn't correct. She lets the town feel what it needs to feel, something that can't be forced nor taught. Only through loss can understanding be gained. At Montville High School, the principal and the student council organized the first listening forum in the school's history, where students can speak out about things they have never dared to say. No teacher's table, no speeches, just a circle of chairs, wireless microphones, and a wooden box placed in the middle of the room. Say what you fear the most. A 12th grade student stands up, her voice trembling. I used to be bullied for liking to draw instead of playing soccer. But I kept silent, because I thought, like Lily, if I'm different, I'll be ostracized. A 10th grade girl writes on a piece of paper, putting it in the box. I used to see my friend cry when she came out of English class, but I didn't ask. Now I wish I had asked. The atmosphere isn't tense, but quiet. That quiet isn't as piercing as before, but is the quiet of true listening, when no one tries to speak up to deny, but just tries to understand. In the school library, once reserved only for books and research, a small corner is created called Lily's Corner. No large pictures, no prominent names, just a round wooden table, a vase of white daisies, and a thick white-covered notebook. The first page is written in soft handwriting. Write what you are afraid to say, and leave it here, where someone is willing to read. Every day, the notebook is opened. Some students write about family sadness. Some write about the fatigue of trying too hard to be perfect. Some just write a single sentence. I miss Lily, even though I never talked to you. The principal doesn't issue directives, nor does he censor. They leave the notebook there, so that the words that never had a chance to be spoken can now be recorded as a real part of this school. A small memorial service is held on Saturday. No reporters, no lengthy speeches. Just a few former students, some teachers, Jenny, Monica, and Daniel. The memorial service takes place on the Daisy Hill behind the school, now unofficially called Lily's Hill. Everyone sits in a circle. No lanterns, no sad music. Just each person, one by one, standing up, reading a sentence, a poem, a memory of Lily. No one talks about death. Everyone just mentions her life, the small, small things, like the way Lily used to tuck her hair behind her ear, or the way she used to sit leaning against the wall reading a book as if afraid to disturb the light. When it's Monica's turn, she doesn't hold paper. She just looks at the white daisies trembling in the wind, then says softly, "She has been listened to." Finally. That afternoon, Daniel returns home. He opens the cabinet, taking out the diary Lily wrote in middle school, the one with the brown leather cover, once stuck between the drawers of the desk. He doesn't read it. He just places it next to the last diary, as if putting together two parts of a person who lived, dreamed, loved, and feared. Outside, the wind blows. The light of the end of the day shines diagonally through the window, creating a long streak on the table. He breathes lightly. The town is still the same. Nothing has changed. But in the silence, something has begun to heal. The late autumn afternoon in Montville passes by slower than usual. Maple leaves paint the entire hillside red, falling with each gentle gust of wind, drawing soft, flying streaks like the sighs of time. The air isn't bitterly cold, just a little chilly, like a light touch on the skin, not hurting, but enough to make people remember. At the cemetery on the west side of town, 3 people stand silently by a new tombstone. Neat, bright stone, as simple as the person lying beneath it once lived. Lily Gardner, lover of words. And once waited to be listened to. Daniel bends down, taking a small object from his pocket. Lily's first diary. Silver gray fabric cover, where she used to write her first poems, still immature and clumsy. He touches the cover lightly with his thumb, as if stroking his daughter's hair one last time, then places the notebook next to the foot of the tombstone. "You don't need to write anymore, Lily," he whispers. "You've written enough for people not to forget you." His voice doesn't tremble, but his eyes are red. Not because of crying. He's past the time of tears. It's just that in that look, something has just left, and has also just returned. On the other side of the cemetery, Jenny walks over, holding a bouquet of white daisies. She doesn't stick it in the flower vase on the grave, but keeps it, then turns and branches onto the small dirt road, the one that leads down to the riverbank where Lily used to sit reading books in the shade of the willow tree. Jenny walks alone. She doesn't say anything, doesn't think anything, just listens to the sound of her footsteps mixing with the sound of the wind. When she reaches the water's edge, she stops. The river is still as calm as ever. On the water, the maple leaves swirl with the current, as if telling stories in a language only Lily understands. Jenny opens her hand. The bouquet of white daisies falls, scattering in the air, then gently landing on the river. The flowers float, drifting away like a whisper that doesn't need sound. If you're still reading poetry somewhere, I hope it's in a place with wind, white daisies, and no one to scare you anymore, Jenny says softly. She sits down on the grass. For the first time in many years, she feels that the sadness inside her is no longer screaming. It only remains as a small ember, enough to keep her living more truthfully. At the Montville police station, Monica Reyes sits in her office, the afternoon light shining diagonally on the last file of the Lily Gardner case. She has finished the report, complete, accurate, according to procedure. But she doesn't close the file immediately. She takes out a loose sheet of paper, writing by hand, not for the file, but for herself. "I used to think justice was something I had to bring, but I was wrong. There are some cases that don't need judgment, but need listening. There are some cries for help that aren't loud enough, but are real enough to make an entire person's life collapse when ignored. I learned that listening is not just a skill, but the presence of the human heart." She folds the letter, not sending it to her superiors, just puts it in her personal notebook. The last note she writes in this case is a single line. "Lily has come home." When the sun begins to set, the honey-colored light spills through the tops of the maple trees, shining down on Lily's grave. Next to the diary is a small, laminated photo. Lily, at the 10th grade poetry reading ceremony, wearing a white headband, smiling shyly because her friends are cheering her on. The sunlight shines on the photo, making that smile shine brightly. No longer a painful memory, but a part of the warm wind that just blew through the cemetery. Daniel sits down on the wooden bench nearby, made by his own hands, installed last week. He leans back, sighing, not heavily, not heartbreakingly, just like someone who has finally put down their luggage after a too long journey. "You're home, aren't you?" he says. There is no answer, but in the wind, in the afternoon sun, and in his heart, something nods. The town of Montville is still the same. There are still people going to the market, students going to school, maple leaves falling every day. But inside it, something is different. There aren't too many promises anymore, but there are more nods when someone wants to share. More listening, instead of avoiding. Lily didn't live to see it. But thanks to her, the town is starting to learn how to listen to each other again. And for Daniel, for Jenny, for Monica, and for all who ever crossed paths with Lily in life, they have learned how to keep a person with memories, with love, and by not turning away from the pain anymore.